The third point of know your rights for activists involves interaction with the police. This is true at a protest or just on the street. First, you have the right to remain silent, and you absolutely should do so. All right, unless you are an immigrant that has an A number in your green card and you are being interviewed by an immigration agent, in which case you should give them your A number. In which case you should give them you should memorize your A number and give it to them. Outside of that relatively narrow circumstance, and especially if you're at a protest, you should not be talking to the police. And the reason for that is, first of all, if you're doing something that they consider illegal, you don't want to talk to them about it, whether it's illegal or not. But second, and I think this is a subtler point, if you are suspected of doing something illegal, just talking to the police can give them information they can use against you, even if you have done nothing wrong. Okay, so you're at a protest, and somebody else has thrown a trash can through a window around the corner. And an officer comes over and talks to you and says, what are you doing? Where were you 10 minutes ago? If you say, well, I was over there, around the corner, where the trash can got thrown, but I didn't throw it, well, you've admitted half of what they need to do to prosecute you, which is to show that you were right there when it happened, right? So you're innocent, but you're helping them, right? That basic idea plays out across the whole range of what law enforcement might interview people about. And so, for your own protection, it is a very good idea to just remain silent. In Delaware, police departments are telling people that they have an obligation to answer certain questions. They are saying that you can be arrested if you don't tell them your name and address, where you've come from, and where you're going. That is wrong. It is not true. You can be temporarily detained for up to 2 hours if they have reasonable suspicion that you've committed a crime, and if the information they're asking for is connected to that suspicion. Outside of that fairly narrow category, it is incorrect that they can make you answer those questions. So if you hear a police officer saying that, tell them, no, that is incorrect. All right, your obligation is limited to, if they have reasonable suspicion, giving them information to satisfy that, and if you don't, all they can do is detain you for up to 2 hours. They can't arrest you. There's no crime that they can charge you with. The one exception here is if they believe you are loitering and you don't explain what it is that you're doing, you're giving up the chance to avoid them arresting you for loitering because you need to explain why you're standing there. Outside of that exception, that's it, okay? Second big category of police interaction. 99% of police searches happen with consent. They ask, can I search your bag? Can I search your car? Can I search your house? They don't ask nicely. Maybe they ask some of you nicely. Most people they approach, they're not going to ask nicely. They're just going to say, let me look in your bag. It doesn't sound like a question, but it is. You should refuse consent. And the way you do that is to say, I do not consent to this search. The way you don't do that is to say, no, give me my bag, right? Or push the officer away, right? Refusing consent is not the same thing as refusing the order. Okay, you refuse consent verbally. You say, no, I don't consent. And if they say, give me the bag, I'm going to open it, you say, okay, but I'm not consenting. All right? The reason you should refuse consent to a search is much the same reason you should refuse to talk to the police in the first place. You don't know what they're going to find in there, what crime they might be investigating. It might turn out, they're investigating a fish and game crime, and it turns out your shellfish was illegal. Right? There's probably 1,700 crimes they could charge you with that you're not even thinking about. Don't consent to searches. There's no reason to do that. Last thing. If you're interacting with a police officer, there is this nebulous boundary between when you are under arrest or when you are stopped and when you are just having a voluntary interaction with the police. Even as a lawyer, it's a very difficult boundary to figure out which one you're in. And police are very well trained to make it vague about which one you're in. Right? They don't want you to know that you're actually free to go, right? Or that you're not being stopped, because they want a chance to interrogate you. They want to try to get information out of you. And so the way to navigate that boundary, and again, especially if you're at a protest, is to say, and you probably all know this phrase, hopefully the ACLU has drilled this phrase into enough heads, am I free to go? That's what you say. Okay? Now, when you go and talk to an officer and you say, am I free to go? Are they going to say, why, yes, madam, you are free to go? Or are they going to say, no, you have been stopped under reasonable suspicion? No, they're not going to be that helpful to you most times, right? They're just going to keep talking. They're going to barrel through your question. Or they're going to say, why are you asking that? Why won't you just answer my questions? Why won't you just let me search your bag? And your retort to that is, am I free to go? Right? You can keep asking that until they say, yeah, you're free to go, and then you go. Let me make one last plea about exercising these rights. Okay, there are obviously times when you want to talk to law enforcement. Maybe you've been the victim of a crime. Maybe you have information about a crime. Don't hear me to be saying you shouldn't share that information. You absolutely should share that information on your terms. Okay? It shouldn't be you just happen to encounter a police officer who comes up to you at a protest and talks to you on the corner. It should be you go and talk to, ideally, somebody at the ACLU, and then you go talk to the police. Or at a minimum, you go talk to the police after having talked it out with some friends, make sure you're safe in what you're doing. Control the terms of it, right? I mean, in an emergency, it's a different matter, but most of the stuff we're talking about, giving tips, giving information, it's not immediate emergency. Control your own encounter with the police. And the other is, even if these things not consenting, remaining silent, even if those aren't helping you in the moment, your exercise of those rights does help people, right? Because if you're a person who isn't actually that suspicious, right, you can exercise maybe some white female privilege and tell a cop, no, I actually don't want to answer your questions, am I free to go? The more you do that, the more we normalize that, the more it becomes safer for everybody to do that. So I really want you to encourage you to do this, exercise your rights, and interact with police on your terms.